Hello again everyone and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I am John and as always thank you so much for being here. One of our favorite topics, let's do it. What's one unsolved mystery that you would like to see solved? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. What happened to Lord Lucan? After killing his children's nanny Sandra Rivet in 1974, he vanished without a trace. It's suspected he mistook her for his wife, who he was having marital problems with because of his gambling addiction. Being a lord, he had many wealthy friends, and after the murder, he vanished with the only clue being his car left parked near the coast. There have been sightings of him through the years, but they all turned out to be other people. I've missed a lot of details, but it's a deep rabbit hole with many twists and turns. Barry and Honey Sherman. Barry was the multi-billionaire CEO of Apotex, a generic drug manufacturer. On December 13, 2017, they met at the company offices to go over some proposed design changes to their new home. This was the last time they were seen alive. The morning of December 15th, a pair of real estate agents showing their property found their bodies on the floor next to their pool. They were bound by leather belts around their necks to a metal railing about a meter high around the pool. Barry's body was seated, legs crossed. Honey's was on her side with a bruise on her face. Both had cuts pulled down over their shoulders to restrain their arms. Both were fully clothed and facing away from the pool. There was no evidence of forced entry to the house. There is one 20-second long blurry video of a person who might be a suspect. There are dozens of other people who had motives. If you can figure it out, the Sherman family is offering a $35 million reward. Yeah, that sounds like a fascinating one. Would love to discover that, and $35 million would probably incentivize some people too. The yogurt shop murders in Austin, Texas. It's not fascinating, it's just that I passed a place it happened every day while taking my kid to school, so I think about it. There's DNA, so in theory it can be solved one day. It may be too late for there to ever be justice, but at least the families would know. I took my son to the hospital one day, and I left my iPhone at home in the kitchen. When I returned home later on that day, I was looking at my pictures on my camera roll, and there was one that was taken at the hospital that day. The picture looked a little blurry. You can see the waiting room chair, even says the name of the hospital at the top, and was taken, it said 12:45 p.m., around the time we were at the hospital. This happened about 6 months ago or so, and I still can't explain it. Jack the Ripper. The fact that we still don't know who he was is obviously a huge part of it, but his ability to slip back into the night after quickly performing these knowledgeable, intricate killings and staging of the bodies adds a whole other layer to the mystery of the murders. I also find it very interesting, in a historical sense, as it gives us a real window into what Whitechapel was like during that time. There was a couple that disappeared from Philadelphia without a trace back in 2005. Their names were Rich Patrone and Danielle Imbo. Out drinking one night and vanished into thin air. So did Rich's truck. Some speculation went with Danielle's ex-husband, who may have been mobbed up. No trace of them was ever found. I'm not sure if this counts or not, but when I was little, my mom, who was really into urban foraging, was in the woods picking mushrooms when she came across a skeleton. My parents contacted the police, and the skeleton was declared Native American remains. My mom didn't fight back on it, but she swore to me and my dad that it had a pistol, green tube socks, and camo pants. So, 15 years go by, and my dad and a friend of his were driving around. My dad pointed the spot out and asked, "Hey, did I ever tell you about that skeleton my wife found? She found it right over there." And my dad's friend, a little shocked, said, "No, but right there is where they found my friend's car 20 years ago, and no one's seen him since." So they talked, and my dad described the gun and his friend and said the gun was his. They pieced it together and figured out the skeleton belonged to the friend's childhood friend. He was a high school dropout who went into the army when he was proud of himself, but he got a dishonorable discharge for failing a drug test. He stole my dad's friend's gun and went for a drive he never came back from. So because my mom found a skeleton, 15 years later, my dad and his friend were able to close a 20-year-old missing person case. The whole sequence of murders in Bardstown, Kentucky, Jason Ellis, Kathy and Samantha Netherland, Crystal Rogers, and her dad Tommy Ballard, all happened between 2013 and 2016, some of which are likely related, but nobody really knows which ones for sure. It's a really wild deep dive if you're new to the story. Hadn't really heard of this one, but I do love a good weird deep dive, so anchors away. There are many more serious important cases, but I'm an F1 fan, so I really like this one. At the 2004 Monaco Formula One Grand Prix, the Jaguar team ran a promotional campaign for the Ocean's 12 movie. They mounted two $300,000 diamonds on the noses of their cars. Jaguar driver Chris Klein crashed on his first lap. He was okay, but the car wasn't, and lost the front wing on impact. All car parts were removed from the track, but crucially, the diamond wasn't recovered, and its whereabouts are still unknown to this day. The disappearance of Dr. Sneha Philip, Indian-American physician who lived in downtown Manhattan not too far from the World Trade Center. She was last seen on the night of September 10th, 2001. Her family had not added her to the official list of 9/11 deaths, and her name is at the memorial pool, but it can't be definitively proven that she died in the attacks or that she was anywhere near the area at the time. She was going through a lot of personal, professional, and marital problems. Maybe she was the victim of foul play that night, and the culprit got the biggest lucky break in the world the next day when the NYPD was otherwise occupied. Another popular and less plausible theory is that the moment she saw the attacks, she saw the perfect opportunity to fake her death and start a new life elsewhere. My mom, who literally fell over and died for no apparent reason. She was 39, had muscular dystrophy, but otherwise healthy. Got up from the couch and fell forward to the floor. No injuries, and it wasn't anything an autopsy and toxicology report could find. Cause, manner of death was undetermined, and she was allowed to be cremated. I don't get it. In more recent history, what happened to Madeleine McCann? Was it the parents? Was it an unfortunate accident? Was it a targeted crime? The behavior surrounding the parents, the holiday trip itself, and the subsequent suspects made it even more fascinating that the matter is still unsolved to this date. The Watcher. You know the case where someone was watching over the inhabitants of a home? So basically, there were 3 generations of people, apparently all male, watching over a house, one after another. One did it, then retired for the next one to take their place. It only became a case when the 3rd person was watching over the house while a family of 4 were living in it. I don't remember much, but I remember some theories. Number 1, there's a cult in that town that watches over the entire neighborhood. While yes, multiple homes surrounding that one received letters towards the end of the case, I don't think it's true. Number 2, it was all made up by the family, but I doubt there was a concrete motive for it, other than publicity and popularity. Number 3, it was one of the neighbors. I don't remember the motives or if the suspects individually. There wasn't much evidence there as well. I guess an unsolved mystery I think about that is technically considered closed or solved is the death of journalist Cantilly, who was in the same cell as James Foley, Western British journalist captured by ISIS and never formally beheaded. Around the same time of Foley's murder, some articles popped up on ISIS newsletters that had intelligence thinking it was him writing propaganda. He's now assumed dead, but if I recall correctly, like Foley, he had converted to Islam in another situation to avoid beheading, etc. There are so many cases I could talk about here because, like all kids, I went through a serious true crime phase, but this is a personal one I've been thinking about so much lately. It was summer. I think I was 12 or 13 and I was visiting my cousins. We had gone to the store earlier that day, and I had a chocolate bar I planned on eating after dinner. We were all outside, and it suddenly started hailing, so we all rushed inside and I left my cookie bar outside. After the hail cleared, my cousin and I went outside to look for my chocolate bar, and it was completely gone. A little weird considering there certainly weren't winds strong enough to carry it away, but oh well, it's just a chocolate bar. And I didn't think much of it. Well, cut to after the vacation. I'm unpacking my suitcase, which I did not have with me at the time of the hailstorm, and what do I see at the bottom of my suitcase? My chocolate bar. I was so confused and still am. It still tasted good for a teleportation chocolate bar though. Could it have been a family member or a pet or really anything? I had someone's dog eat a baguette the other day that I was really looking forward to enjoying. The Frog Boys of South Korea. I'm a little shaky on the details, so please forgive me if I get anything wrong. 5 boys went to, I believe it was a mountain. Took long for frogs and they never returned. There was no trace of them found at the time, though I think remains of one of the boys has been found at one point, but no one knows what happened to them. Also, the Villisca axe murderers. 8 people, 6 of them were children, were murdered, and no one knows who did it. The Valley of Headless Men. Several people were found dead in a specific area of North America, all under strange circumstances, such as several people who were found with their heads missing. In addition, Native Americans never lived in the area due to the presence of pale-faced demons that lived there. Several of the people found dead were positioned as if they either died completely unexpectedly or realized they were in danger only moments before their deaths, such as one man found positioned as if he was reaching for his rifle. This, combined with the bodies not appearing to have been eaten, aside from the missing heads, implies that wild animals weren't responsible. There was also someone who froze to death and was found next to a lit campfire, which is rather strange. Rachel Cook went for a mid-morning run in 2002 at the age of 19 while staying at her parents' house over Christmas break. Was seen by various neighbors, including one who saw her a couple of houses down walking toward her house. At the completion of her run, there are no signs that she ever made it back to inside her house and no leads. Kenika Jenkins, the girl who went to a party in a hotel, got drunk and dosed, possibly AR'd, and then she leaves alone. She proceeds to shamble all around this hotel until she wanders into the cooler to be found dead the next morning. What makes it so interesting is that a bulk of her evening was caught on the camera. The conspiracy is that her friends sold her out to be AR'd and killed to have her organs harvested. I was obsessed with it for a while because there's so much on video, and apparently the area the hotel was located in was known for organ harvesting. 2 Swedish cases. The murder of Olof Palme and the disappearance of Lily Hildebrandt. Olof Palme, Swedish Prime Minister, shot dead after going to the movies. There are likely suspects, with one being put forth as the most likely culprit, but a definitive answer, there are none. Lel Hildebrand was a tour manager who disappeared in 1999. To be fair, what happened and who did it is pretty well known, but the evidence, not least the lack of a body, has put paid to any trials thus far. The Titan submersible is kind of interesting. Like, were those people lost? Did they run out of air? Did the implosion happen shortly after communication was lost? What would happen if they went back to the surface but couldn't escape? Even the banging noises are kind of interesting and leaves more questions. I mean, we can theorize all we want, but the truth is we haven't seen the half of it. We were not there, so we probably won't ever understand the true extent of the situation. There are no first-hand accounts.